Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie, and I'm a developer advocate for a serverless platform company called Nimbella. So if you're watching this presentation right now, I'm assuming one of two things. Either you have tried to deploy code to the cloud before, and you might have found that the learning curve is pretty difficult, or you've never actually deployed any code to the cloud at all. So I'm here to hopefully show you that with Nimbella, we are one of the more simpler solutions in order to get your application idea onto the cloud as quickly as possible. So for this presentation, here is what you can expect. The first thing we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and set up your personal work environment so that you'll be able to actually launch code to the cloud on your computer. We will discuss what serverless functions are. We're going to talk about how to interact with those serverless functions through our Nimbella Workbench platform. And then we're also going to show you how you actually can deploy a full-on application to the cloud. So now that you know what to expect, let's go ahead and get started by going to nimbella.com. All right. So to get started, let's go ahead and sign up. So to sign up, just go to the top right here of nimbella.com and click this button. And I'm going to make an account with my throwaway account. So go ahead and pick your password. All right, click agree and sign up. So that'll take a couple seconds to load. Nope. All right. So this page right here this is the page that you'll need to pretty much get everything set up to start deploying code to the cloud. So right now you have your personal domain loading right now. But before we go ahead and do that, we need to finalize this setup process. So go to your email account and for some reason pull this up in promotions. And so you're going to go to your email account and you're going to need to verify that you properly signed up. So I've now verified. So once you click verify, it should send you back to the main nimbella.com page. So you can just hover over your email account, which is signed in here, and click set up Nimbella. Okay. Oh, perfect. So right now our domain is set up and we got all these projects we can download, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. We need to make sure that our computer is actually ready to actually launch code to the cloud. So to do that, go ahead and scroll all the way to the very bottom, and you're going to see three options you can click on. So we have the three different options for the Nimbella CLI. And if you don't know what a CLI is, CLI stands for Command Line Interface. And it is a way that you can process commands in your computer's command prompt in order to actually call on Nimbella and actually deploy your code to the cloud. So we have three options. We have one for Mac, Linux, and Windows. I'm using Windows, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on Windows and download that. For you, it might, for some reason, it loaded for me a bit quicker than normal, but it might take like about 15 seconds for you. So just go ahead and prompt that up. Run anyway. Okay. So when you've gone ahead and uploaded this, you should see these three boxes checkmarked for the process of getting your CLI installed and setting up the path. No need to click any of those boxes, just leave them as is and click next. And here you can set the folder that you want to download the CLI. I have no problems with it being in this particular folder right here for project, program files, so I'll just leave it as is. And you can click install right here, and in about 3 minutes, the CLI should be installed. I'm not going to click install because I obviously already have it. So before we move on to the next thing, I want to go ahead and tell you exactly what will happen after about 3 minutes when that's done downloading. Once that's done downloading, you will have your system set up to where you can start deploying code to the command line through the CLI. So once that's done downloading, you're ready to start sending code to the cloud. But before we do that, I think it's good to have a nice introduction to some of the components of building serverless apps. And a pretty important component that I want to showcase for this presentation is serverless functions. And before we start explaining what serverless functions is, let's go to the Workbench, which we'll be using to actually interact with our serverless functions that are currently in the cloud. To do that, above the CLI area where you choose one of the three, you'll see a link right here that says Workbench. Just go ahead, click that link right there, and you'll be redirected to the Workbench. And once that loads, you'll see that you stored a credential for your namespace. This namespace right here is your personal namespace where your serverless functions will be stored. And you'll see a bunch of different options you can click on to get started. So before we do anything, if you're like me and you're not a fan of the light background, and just in case yours decided to turn light, you can just type in themes and click this button right here so you can go to dark mode, just in case yours is the light background and you're not a fan of that. All right. So now that you've got the theme background, let's talk about serverless functions. So, what is a serverless function? So a serverless function is a singular purpose functionality that is hosted on the cloud. And what I mean by that is that if you have an idea that, like some sort of functionality that you might not necessarily need a web interface for, or some functionality you would like to add a web interface for, you can just take that pure functionality and store it to the cloud. A good example of that would be, for example, let's say you have a database that can be called with an API and it would return some of your coworkers' information. And that information could be just basic text of like their email, their phone number, just kind of some stuff you would need from a coworker. And you might think, okay, well, I don't necessarily need a website for that, but it would be nice to have a basic URL that I can grab. I can put it into my browser, I can pass it some arguments, and then I'll be able to return a very specific JSON of a very specific coworker that I'm trying to get information on. So that would be a pretty good example of something you could do for serverless functions that's really straightforward. And so now that you have an idea of what a serverless function is, let's actually go ahead and build one. So to do that, I like to go ahead and try to figure out exactly what I'm doing on this page. So to do that, just go ahead and type in quick start. You can either type it in or click the button. I just like to go ahead and type it. All right, so we got the quick start page pulled up. This is a nice little area that'll give you an idea of what you can actually do with this workbench. And we got a description of the playground, which I'll be talking a little about later. But the two things that I want to point out right here are these two commands right here, the new action name and edit action name. So whether you like to call them actions or serverless functions, whichever you prefer, it's whatever you decide to name it. And from here, this is the command that we would use to create a new serverless function. So let's go ahead and do that. Type in new, and we'll call it hello world. All right. So what you've now done here is that you have created a serverless function, but it's not on the cloud yet. It doesn't have a URL connected to your namespace that you could be able to share with anyone. You just have a basic template that you can edit. And let's actually edit that real quick. I want to go ahead and when I run this command, I don't want to have to type in .json in order to actually display the actual return. I just wanted to go ahead and automatically show in the body of the browser that I'm doing. So go right here and type in body and left curly bracket, right curly bracket, So this will make this text right here, which this whole command right here, this is just essentially a hello world script written in JavaScript. That's all it really is. And to actually get this on the cloud, click this button right here that says deploy. So just by doing that, by clicking that button, you have now officially sent this code to the cloud. So you can now generate a URL and be able to give it to people, and they will be able to interact with your functionality. So let's just test that in this browser right here. So to test it out, all you would do is type in action invoke to invoke the action, and then type in the name of the action. So I want to invoke the action of hello world. And I need to give it a param of name. So I'll do --param, say the param of name, and I want to pass it the argument Jamie. So it now just says hello Jamie. And if you want to see the text again, if you want to go ahead and see that functionality again, you just type in action list. Now this is a nice command right here because this will be able to list off not only the action you just created, but every other action that is currently stored onto your namespace. So you see like exactly what is and is not deployed to the cloud. So click that, it'll say action get and get the name, and it'll bring you back to here. So now you're probably thinking, okay, so I have this code, it's on the cloud, I can pass it params, but I want other people to be able to interact with this functionality that I just created. How would I do that? So to do that, we just have to go ahead and get the URL. So the command to do that would be action get. So we need to get the action, and we need to give it the name. So it's hello world. And then we need the URL, so we'll type in --URL. For some reason it popped up twice, but whatever. All right, so get this URL by just copying it right here. Go into your browser, search it up. And what it'll do is that it'll run this command in the cloud and in your browser, and it'll actually display, hello stranger, because I did not pass it any arguments. And what's really cool about this is that you can now take this URL and you can share this with anyone on the internet. And anyone that has access to your URL will be able to run this command, and they'll be able to use your functionality as if they were visiting any other website. And if they wanted to test it out, they could just pass it some arguments. So we'll do, to pass it some arguments, just go into the browser, type in a question mark. I believe it's a question mark, name equals, we'll type in my name, Jamie. And we pass it an argument, so now it says hello, Jamie, instead of just hello, stranger. And before we go ahead and move on, and we're going to be done wrapping up talking about serverless functions, I kind of want to talk about the significance of what we're looking at here. So if you look at this code right here, this is nothing more than just basic JavaScript hello world function, very beginner. But what's awesome about this is that at no point in here are you having to deal with any infrastructure. You're not having to tell this functionality to connect to any server that you're running. All you're doing is just writing like pure code logic, and you're telling the Nimbella platform, hey, just take this logic, host it on a cloud, give me a URL so I can just give it to whoever, or I could take that URL and search it in my app that I'm building. That's all this is. And so this should overall kind of give you an idea of the simplicity of actually getting your functionality created and shared so that's in the hands of users faster. Okay, so now that you've had a chance to work with the Workbench, one final thing I want to show you before we go ahead and move on to from the Workbench is this neat little thing that we built called the Playground. So maybe you want like a nice little environment to experiment with functionality without actually like creating it in your personal domain name. So to do that, you can either click on the Playground or you can type in Playground. I'm just going to go ahead and type it in. So those take about a second to load. Okay. So this is the playground, which can be accessed into the Workbench. And I also do want to note what's interesting about this playground is that this playground can actually be accessed without through the Workbench without actually creating an Nimbella account. And you can see and experiment what it's like to actually build serverless functions inside of the cloud and actually deploying them without going through the hassle of giving your email and all that jazz. So here you can pass in arguments. You can see like what the output is. Like maybe I don't want to say stranger. Maybe I just want to go and say friend. Run it. Oh yeah, that did not work. That did not say friend because I'm actually passing in an argument. Okay, let's remove that. Run. And you can see you can update it. And if you're not a fan of JavaScript for whatever reason, we have a lot of different other options. And you can click on here. You can do it in TypeScript, Python, Swift, Java, Go, PHP, whichever language you prefer. And these languages right here are the exact same languages you can use on our personal platform. And if you want to go ahead and test out exactly what it would be like if you were to actually launch this code to the cloud, well, you can do that. So you just go ahead and click publish. You will get a special URL. And you can see that like this code right here is launched to the cloud. You can take this right here and you can share it with anyone and they will be able to see your functionality in the exact same way. It's just the only thing is that you won't have it saved to your namespace. So yeah, you won't have it saved to your namespace. And that's, if you're actually building applications, that's helpful. So that we're going to go ahead and close out of this thing right here. So we are now done going over the Workbench and you have now gotten like a basic idea of what it's like interacting with serverless functions with the Nimbella platform. Let's go ahead and try something a little bit more advanced because I'm imagining you're not just wanting to deal with serverless functions. I imagine you want to go ahead and build entire serverless applications. So at this point, the nim command that you just installed for the CLI, that should all be set up. So we can go ahead and get started with that. To do that, this command right here, click this button right here to copy this whole command. So this says nim auth login, and that is your login to log into your domain. I know this is a I know this is a throwaway account, but hey, it's still smart to hide your keys. All right. So paste that in there and hit enter. And when you paste that in and hit enter, you should see a nice little message telling you that you're logged in and that your domain name is now connected and you're able to launch code to the cloud. So to start launching code to the cloud, let's deal with some of the demo projects that we have available into this page. So right here we have this GitHub, which is filled with several different demos, both that are stateful, stateless. Some of the projects are built in Python, JavaScript, PHP. So we have like several projects you can download. So click this button right here and just paste it in here and run this command. I don't have to run it because, I already downloaded it before the presentation. So after about it might take a few seconds, but you should have all the projects downloaded pretty soon. All right. So now that the project has been, now that you have deployed or cloned, now that you've cloned all of the projects on GitHub onto maybe your desktop or wherever, let's go ahead and actually launch one of them into the cloud. And I'm going to show you just how easy that is by selecting, let's go ahead and go with this one, this page visit counter. So this is actually a really nice one. It's built in PHP and it actually has key value and object storage. And I'll show you just how easy it is to launch that. So copy this command right here for this project. paste it in here, and hit OK to actually run the command. Oh, hold on. I see the problem. Give me 1 sec. Sorry about that. Yeah, that project was connected to a different namespace. Okay, so no biggie. I'll just go ahead and log in with my other namespace, and we'll take it from there. Okay. So go ahead and run that. Okay, sweet. So let me go ahead. So now that you went and ran this command to take this project and launch onto the cloud, I'm going to go ahead and explain exactly what this output means. So right here, we have the command nim project deploy and the path. So what this is doing is saying, okay, interact with Nimbella. We're not about to interact with it. We're either going to deal with an action or a project. Now, since we're not just deploying just a single action, we're deploying a project, I type in project. And then we're saying, okay, I want to deploy it. And then you give it the path of the project you're going to deploy. From there, it realizes, okay, it finds the path. It starts deploying it to the namespace. And you'll see these two options right here. Now, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you just ended up like launching some like just the actions and not the actual like web interface, like the static web access assets to it. Then if it was just the actions, you would only see this. But if it was also just like the web stuff, then you would just see this, but like you wouldn't see any messages of actions. So it just really just depends on what you're launching and exactly what you're trying to build. So now that we've went and we actually have this launched onto the cloud, let's see it in action. So to do that, just copy this link right here, open up a new tab. All right. And this is the app that has been deployed to the cloud. So as you see right here, this is a pretty basic application in and of itself, but it does involve key value storage. So what it's doing is that this application right now is a stateful application. Every single person that I share this link with, it stores the amount, every number of people that visit my page, and it also stores when exactly I first launched this application to the cloud. So this date might be more accurate to today's date if you're actually looking at this page right now. And so now that you've seen that, let me go ahead and show you the basic structure of how to actually organize these particular files. So if you look in this code right here, you're going to see two different folders. You're going to see the web folder and the packages folder. So the web folder is where you would store your static information, such as your HTML, CSS, JavaScript. This would also be the folder that if you were building a React app, you would go ahead and build it in here, and then have your serverless functions called from your React app and actually called in here. Now, as far as your serverless functions, which we just built like a couple of minutes ago, you would put them into the packages folder. So to show you the basic structure of these applications, we can see right here, we have just nothing more than our HTML page that is structuring all of this. And we have our two actions. So we have our info action, which is holding on to this information from like when we initially created it. And we have our counter serverless action, which is stored in here, which counts how many people visit. And pretty much like that, that is overall the entire structure of how to organize your code and get it sent to the cloud. So if you have pretty much like an idea kind of similar to this, or something, an idea you want to work on, this is pretty much how you would start building. And if you're not really sure what you want to build, check out all of our other demo apps. We actually have quite a few on there for multiple languages, and a lot of them show exactly how to store how to actually like implement the database that's built in. So the thing that I actually really like about this project is that it is showcasing the built-in key value storage that naturally comes when you generate a template for a Nimbella project. As you see right here, this code right here with Nimbella, it's calling on Redis, which is a key value storage, database, NoSQL database that you can store information in. So this right here, it's just calling on Redis. You don't have to set up anything at all except write 1 or 2 lines to call upon it for Nimbella. And then you start taking those values and you start applying it to Redis. And just like that, you instantly got a database that deals with a counter. So, all right. Go ahead and wrap that up. Okay, so that goes ahead. That right there actually concludes our 30-minute webinar introducing you to Nimbella and how to get your applications on there. And in just a span of about 30 minutes, what we've done is that we got our computer set up so that we could be able to launch code to the cloud. We learned how to deal with serverless functions so that we can build some on our own, whether in the Workbench or on our personal computer. And we ended up actually taking demo projects and deploying them to the cloud and realizing how easy, and showed how simple it is. If you stuck around for this entire webinar, congratulations, you've now successfully launched code to the cloud, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what original projects that you decide to come up with. And if you are working on an original project right now and you would like to ask some advice or kind of just want to showcase to the community exactly what you're wanting to build, then feel free to contact us on our community Slack channel. Just type in nimbella.com/Slack, and you'll get a link to where you'll be able to access to talk to either all of our developers who code with us, and every single developer that is on our Nimbella team can answer any question you may have as far as technical problems that you might be running into. And as a thank you for participating in this webinar, I want to go ahead and provide the pro version for 3 months for free. Now, all this functionality that you just saw, like all of this is free in general, but you get a lot more functionality with the pro version. And if you are interested in that, then go ahead and follow this link right here. I will go ahead and post that in the chat so that everyone else can have access to it. All right. Not sure why that's so difficult. All right. That is that. And if you have any questions about building apps that are serverless, or just overall questions about Nimbella in general, feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have personally, and I want to go ahead and do whatever I can to make sure that we can get you started coding in the cloud as quickly as possible. So other than that, thank you so much for participating in this webinar. I had a fun time showing everyone how to actually get your ideas onto the cloud quicker. Other than that, hope you have a good rest of the day.